or an understanding which is developed in Western thinking in the last years, which is sometimes referred to as a tipping point or critical mass. And what this means is that in order for any change to occur in a society, it's only necessary for a very small percentage of that society to change, and when enough of a small percentage changes, the whole society changes. There are many examples of how this has happened with crime reduction, with shifting in technology, that it just takes a certain number of people and the whole thing goes. Would the same thing be true about creating an enlightened society? You only need a small percentage to tip the whole society.
Yes, that is what we expect to happen. Here we have found, in fact, that in a village, as 30-40% of people get the Deekshas, and the others without Deeksha are able to move into similar states. When 5-6 villages get transformed, the 7th or 8th one, it is happening automatically. So of course we go through the formality of the Deeksha, but by and large they're already there. So we also believe in the same principle.
Mm-hmm. And you found it to be true?
Yes.
Now, you've talked about transforming these villages, then transforming India,
yes.
then transforming the rest of the world.
Yes, yes.
Bhagavan, people as well as enlightenment, people need education, money, jobs, drinkable water. It was Karl Marx who once called religion or spirituality the opiate of the people. These villages are very poor. Don't they also need money and these other things?
Yes. In fact, after the Deekshas and their transformation, they are becoming more prosperous. Had you visited them about 5 years ago, you would have been struck by the abject poverty. There used to be no rains here. In the summer, people actually died because of the heat. That was the condition. After the Deekshas happened, nobody has died from heat. It has been raining on time, and there have been such rains that they had to pray for the rains to stop. The rains have stopped, and they're getting very good crops, all based completely on prayer. And the prosperity levels have gone up enormously. There was just one jeep 4 years ago. Now there are about, I think, about 75 jeeps are there. You do not have these buildings 4 or 5 years ago. They've all come up. So there's a rising prosperity in the villages. So strangely, accompanied with the state, there's also prosperity also is flowing in along with the state.
You know, Bhagwan, some people would see more jeeps and things as a good thing.
Yes.
Some people would see that it's symptomatic of a kind of westernization, an Americanization, a commercialization. Is there the danger that getting jeeps and TVs and everything, people are going to lose their traditional values?
As far as we are concerned, once you are free of your mind, it does not matter whether you subscribe to the Indian tradition or Western modernity. It does not seem to matter at all. So we are not against the Western TV or the Western kind of food or clothing because you are out of your mind. So, which means you could enjoy anything without being addicted to it. So we do not see it as any danger at all. And the Jeeps certainly have made life more comfortable because you were going to be a bullock cart earlier.
Yeah.
You had no idea about the world. Now the TV has brought the world right into your dressing room. So it has made a world of difference, and we are not against what the West has to offer. The West has built up a physical paradise. Now what we need is an inner paradise. And if both are combined, it is heaven on earth. What's the point in just merely being enlightened but rolling in abject poverty?
Yes.
It doesn't make sense.
I want to talk to you a little bit more about society and particularly about politics. Politics in most parts of the world is dominated by people with a lust for power.
Yes.
So you have to really, really want power in order to get into a position of power. And this is usually accomplished by getting the financial support of wealthy backers, which are very often have commercial interests. These backers are large corporations. So really, to be straightforward about it, I think in many countries, politics is dominated by a form of kind of legalized bribery. That a corporation can pay for a politician, the politician then has an obligation to reward the corporation. What effect might what you're doing in these 100 villages and beyond have on politics? Is there another way we could have politics than what we're seeing now?
We are talking of the golden age, where people would be totally transformed. When we say they would be transformed, what we mean by that is they would no more engage in self-centered activity because the self is gone. You only live for the whole of mankind. So these are the people who would be in politics. Politicians who are not self-centered, who are not narrow-minded. Similarly, bureaucrats and technicians who are not self-centered, and spiritual leaders who are not self-centered, because they could also be self-centered, and businessmen who are no longer self-centered. So it's like one big family, and everybody working for the other. So we expect things to change very dramatically in politics. The result would be actually power would percolate down to the level of the common man. So such dramatic things are most likely to happen because nobody is going to be after power. So power would belong to everybody. There could be collective decisions being taken. It's going to be a very different world that we are going to see very soon.
I think there's a lot of people who would be very interested to hear more about that. What do you mean by power coming down to the common man? How would things get done like that?
See, all this work we do because we have a roadmap. Now, in this roadmap, we actually see certain strange forms of governance coming, where decisions are not taken by the Senate or by Parliament, but by the people directly. How it's going to be done, we have no idea. Like the ancient seer said, when the iron bird flies in the air, they could not conceive of the aeroplane. Since we are not politicians, we don't understand what we are seeing. But what we see is there does not seem to be something like a president or a prime minister or a parliament, but somehow there are some executive officers who seem to obey the people's will. It looks like on every issue the people would be deciding. Now how they would decide and how it's going to be made into law, we are not very clear about it because we are not seeing it happen. But we can clearly see the people are taking decisions. There is no group of politicians who are deciding. But there are some people who are educating the people. Maybe we could call them politicians. But the current day politician vanishes from the scene, is no longer found there.
Yes. Do you feel in a golden age, as you're saying, do you feel that democracy as we know it now would continue to be the best model for governance?
Democracy as we know it today, it vanishes.
Really?
Some kind of greater democracy comes into play where the people are directly involved in governing the country. It's no more that you vote for somebody and then he governs. It's not like that. It's the people directly being involved with governance. That's the kind of democracy we are seeing, not the present kind of democracy.
I see. Bhagavan, you've talked about enlightenment. At one time you defined it as freedom from society.
Yes.
What is freedom from society?
When we talk of enlightenment, we also talk of it as freedom from conditioning. That is, you're conditioned as an Indian or an American or a Hindu or a Muslim or this caste or that caste. All kinds of conditioning is there. Now, when you become enlightened, you become free of this conditioning. And this conditioning comes from society. Society conditions you through your parents, through your school, your textbooks, through the media. In every way, it's conditioning you. And to be truly enlightened is to be free of this conditioning. You just see it there, and it no more touches you. So we call this freedom from society.